My guests today include James Marlow, who's a freelance journalist. He's also been based in LA and understands America very well, and will bring a Jewish Israeli perspective to the programme. So welcome, James.
Thank you.
I'm also joined by Neville Watson, who's a prospective parliamentary candidate for UKIP. And we know that Nigel Farage has got the head over Theresa May in meeting Donald Trump first. So we have this to discuss. Well, first of all, James, as a journalist, were you surprised by Trump's victory over Hillary Clinton? Because according to all the opinion polls, according to the entire liberal media, everyone thought that Hillary was going to win with a landslide last Tuesday.
Well, not quite a landslide, certainly a landslide about a month ago. I think some of the polls actually put her at 97% chance of winning the election in the United States. But I still nevertheless had this feeling that something was going to happen. And as a result, I put a bet on Donald Trump to win. I was going to play the Forex markets because the markets went down and went up 5 minutes later. I'm very glad I didn't do that. But I won myself 100 quid. There was this feeling of momentum taking place. And especially after Hillary Clinton lost that momentum because the FBI decided to get in on the race and suggest that they wanted to have another look at the emails. And then, of course, they cancelled that one out. And she blames the FBI for that. But people who followed Hillary Clinton said that we will vote for her, but we will hold our noses at the same time. Whereas those who voted for Donald Trump said, we've tried the Republicans, we've tried the Democrats, we wanted change, we didn't get that 8 years ago, so what have we got to lose by just putting our vote with Donald Trump? And that's what they did.
I have to ask you, James, in terms of American Jewry, for example, the American Jewish community on the whole are mainly Democrats, and the majority would have actually voted and supported Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there very few Jewish people that actually support the Republican Party?
Well, it's true what you say. It's estimated that it's approximately 75% of people did not vote for Donald Trump. 75% of Jewish people in the United States didn't vote for Donald Trump. By the way, they also estimate that 75% of people here in the UK did not vote for Brexit, but I don't believe those figures. However, there are an enormous amount of liberal Jewish people in the United States. People who don't necessarily live within a Jewish community, they don't necessarily have any connection with Jewish education, and I'm not knocking that. I speak as a practicing Jew and an observant Jew, part of one of the Jewish communities here in northwest London. But nevertheless, because they don't have that connection with the Jewish community, and because they have absolutely no Jewish education whatsoever, they are caught up in the media and what people say. And we see that generally the media is very far left and quite liberal. And I think that's also one of the reasons why Donald Trump got elected President of the United States. There were many reasons why people voted for him, for change, taking a chance on him, but also because they were sick and tired of being told by the media, and specifically journalists, and I speak as a journalist myself, but they're being told journalists are speaking to people, but they're not relaying back to the camera and in their own writings exactly what the people are saying. They're not transforming or transferring that particular anger on the streets. They're just simply interpreting what they personally feel, and that's why people are angry. And we've got to the situation today where if people are concerned about the border, they're concerned about security, they're concerned about their jobs, they're concerned about more immigrants coming in as such, that they feel that if they say it out loud, that they're being called a bigot, a racist, a xenophobic, and all of these things. And now, all of a sudden, they have Donald Trump, and they feel that they're able to express that. Of course, I am in no way condoning anything from real racism and the far right. I mean, I'm from an ethnic minority myself. But nevertheless, I do think that if people do have a concern about uncontrolled immigration in the United States, that they're allowed to raise it.
And as what you rightly said, you know, at this moment in time, people are frightened to speak, just to be concerned. And that was like in Brexit. I was accused of being a racist. It was ridiculous. It was, how could I be no, but what I mean by it, the words were coming out during Brexit campaign, that how could someone like me, and then they would almost, they looked at me, and it was very difficult to call me a racist. But when I was saying, well, no, we don't mind immigration. We want immigration,
but controlled
immigration. We want
immigration.
it to be controlled.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We want it so that we can look after those that come in, look after when they arrive. And I believe Donald Trump will bring some sense and a level of understanding to the debate. But what he's not going to be is politically correct. We don't need political correctness now. We don't need that. We need someone who has an understanding and has a heart for his country. And what he's going to show everyone, that he has a heart for America.
This is Gary Lane, who is the International News Director and Senior Reporter for CBN in the United States.
I can hear you fine, Simon. Are you hearing me?
Oh, we're hearing you loud and clear now, Gary. Fantastic news.
Great.
Firstly, Gary, I just want to congratulate you and your team because you've done a fantastic job during this presidential election campaign.
Right now, my priority is the economy. My priority is jobs and health care and providing a better country for the people.
James Marlow here. I've got a question. Actually, I'd like to ask you two questions. Right at the beginning of the interview, hello there. You said that you took some of the viewers away from Fox News. I'm just wondering what it was that Fox News did that was negative to some of the evangelical viewers, because Fox News over here in the UK is known as quite a right-wing news network.
Well, I mean, I think people would say since Roger Ailes has left, it isn't quite what it used to be, and many. I think some of that hostility is directed at Megyn Kelly. She was viewed as being very anti-Trump, and as you know, during the campaign, he even got into it with Megyn Kelly a little bit.
The other question I wanted to ask Gary, but I didn't get it in time, was he mentioned that Donald Trump is going to bring back jobs. Now, how exactly is going to do that in a corporate world that we live in today? But nevertheless, he's gone now. So today, Donald Trump won, and he won because there was two other candidates who were also standing on the left. Well, actually, there was three candidates, but only one of those two candidates were going to win. So when you say you had a feeling that Donald Trump was going to win, well, you had a 50% chance of getting it right. Let's face it. But I do think that some of those other votes went to a lady called Stein from the Green Party and for Gary Johnson, I think his name was. So had that not have happened, I'm not sure he would have carried those questionable states. But nevertheless, he did. And I have a good feeling about this. However, unfortunately, there's an enormous amount of people also in the United States that want Donald Trump to fail. Wanting Donald Trump to fail is like wanting the pilot of the plane that we're all flying on to crash.
Absolutely.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We are seeing right now in places in Oregon, in California, and specifically in Los Angeles. It started last Saturday on Wilshire Boulevard. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people marching down in the city center of Los Angeles. They then started trashing the shops and throwing bricks at cars. There were people crying. There people couldn't get to work. Those riots are still taking place today. The people who are doing this are those same people that voted against the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment in the United States is the right not to carry guns. In other words, we don't want you carrying guns. We don't want you carrying any arms whatsoever, but we're going to smash this place up at any time, at any place. These are the people who are smashing up the streets, who are destroying stores, who are making people's lives a misery. And one thing that has actually taken place as a result is President Obama is still the president. He still wields a huge amount of power. Yep. He hasn't said up to this point one word. And I suspect the reason why he hasn't said anything about these riots and to ask the country to calm down and get a grip of itself and respect the candidate that actually won, I suspect it's because of his complete and utter disdain for Donald Trump. And he's going to allow this to wave on for perhaps another few days, maybe a week, before something much bigger takes place.
That's a very good point, James. Very good point.
So when you talk about his legacy will be for an African American to rise up to the highest office in the world. That's a legacy, and we can be encouraged by that, and I think we should all be encouraged by that. And
absolutely,
that would be his greatest legacy. Would be that. We cannot take that away from him, and that would be in the history books.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I'm very glad that Obama, as a black man, did become the first American president in the United States. Something like this was unheard of 15, 20 years ago. So I'm very glad that happened. And he was an amazing orator. everyone all over the world just they flocked out to hear him speak. In fact, he was best when there was tens of thousands of people in stadiums. And he just managed to open up, and he was so natural. He was uncomfortable on a one-to-one basis answering questions because he realized that anything he say might alter the stock market or change businesses over or something like that. But as you look back over the 8 years, it is fair to say that unemployment has risen, income has stagnated, crime has risen, and there is people are more concerned about terrorism threats, specifically inside the United States. He's also lost complete and utter influence from a foreign policy point of view.
Completely.
What was America's enemies at one time has now managed to take over so much from the Crimea across to Syria, extend its influence across the Middle East, very close with Iran, and the Americans are completely and utterly out of the picture. And one of the worst things from a foreign policy point of view that Obama did is that he warned the Syrians, and they were a little bit wary. And then he said, if you started to attack civilians, we're going to come in. And he did that. Nothing happened. Then chemical weapons were used, and he said that would be a red line. The Americans didn't do anything about it. And from that point, the Syrians realized we have a free hand. And then the Russians moved in, and they managed to look after their base in Latakia, and they moved their troops in. They moved in an enormous amount of armory in, and they now control that whole, and they will not let it go. And that is as a direct result of the American foreign policy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In terms of foreign policy, I have to ask you, because apparently one of our viewers says that I'm not bringing you in enough on the programme, so I've got to apologise to her and also to you as well.
It wasn't my mum, was it?
It might have been, it might have been. But in terms of foreign policy, and particularly concerning Israel, now Donald Trump in the campaign did say that he would move the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He has a close friendship with the Israeli Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu. Unlike President Obama, who, I'm sorry, was a terrible president for Israel, are we going to see a closer bond between Israel and the United States under Trump? Explain why.
But as far as the embassy goes, I believe right now there's about a 20% chance of that embassy moving from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. I personally don't see why that should be, because Jerusalem is always going to be, in fact, actually, if you know Jerusalem, you have two consulates in Jerusalem. One is on the east side, one is on the west side. So you just move the embassy to where the west consulate is, and there shouldn't be any problem. But nevertheless, from what I hear, and from what insiders had told me during that meeting between Trump and Obama a couple of days ago, and Trump admitted, I thought it was going to be a 15-minute meeting. We spoke for almost an hour and a half. What did they speak about? Well, Israel came up during that meeting. And during the discussion of Israel, President-elect Trump was trying to convince President Obama to not allow a UN Security Council resolution to go against Israel, especially without their knowledge. And Obama was trying to convince Trump not to move the embassy because all sorts of crazy things will take place across the Middle East. And I think what will happen is that he will be taken into a room and he'll be sat down and it'll be explained to him exactly what could happen if you move the embassy. Really, in truthful terms, nothing on the ground is really going to change that much. As far as the two-state solution goes, which was also talked about, in other words, their campaign team said, well, we will have a new policy. The Republican policy is, because this two-state solution has been going since Oslo was signed in 1993, and nothing has happened after almost 25 years. So therefore, we shouldn't be pursuing the two-state solution. It's clear that the sides are not ready for it right now. The Palestinians are not ready for an independent state as it stands, and therefore it's not going to create peace. I can't see the official line from the White House and the Republican Party coming to say we are totally against the two-state solution. But nevertheless, they'll probably be much more concerned with what takes place in the US and home policies as opposed to the Middle East. And just finally, with regard to settlements, I don't think Israel has a green light to start building all over Judea and Samaria and East Jerusalem. But again, nevertheless, they will have a little bit of a free hand, simply because I don't think that the settlements are the obstacle to peace. I actually believe it's a solution to peace, because once you separate people and they have no contact whatsoever with each other, then you start to build up that hate and this disdain for each other. If you live together, if you work together, if you travel on the same roads together, if you shop in the same markets together, then you start to have an understanding of each other's culture. That's how it worked before Oslo, and that's how it should work today.
Excellent, very good analysis.
I would have, if I had a vote, would have voted against gay marriage, because I believe in marriage between a man and a woman, and that's what stabilizes our community.
Can I just pick up on that point very quickly?
Go on.
I just want to add that there's enough legislation that has been passed in this country, in the House of Commons, to protect gay people and gay rights, and anyone who says something about gay people, anyone who does physically, not just emotionally, but anyone who discriminates against them for a job or for checking into a hotel or something like that, I think the legislation passed in the House of Commons is 100% correct, and nobody should be singled out for what it is they do and how they do it. But again, if I was a member of Parliament, and it's not very politically correct to say this today, I would not have voted for gay marriage, simply because I also believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, and therefore they wouldn't have got my vote on that issue. And I would have been completely condemned, and I'm sure by saying this, in some areas I would have also been condemned.
Okay. Gentlemen, I just want to thank you so much for joining me on the Late Show tonight, and thank you for your expertise and your insight. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.